we can't always have that
Mm-mm.
inspiration on command. And if you're going to force me to produce a result, it's not going to be at my peak. So that's where also that perfectionism comes in. It's like, this is not my best idea. And I think if you have that conversation, it's like, well, I need that time in order to create something epic.
Hey, you, Brooke Jean here with Brooke Jean Unperfected. I'm a licensed professional counselor, coach, mama, and your keep it real guide to the freedom that's available to you in a life unperfected. If you're a high achieving, perfectionistic, often anxious woman feeling stuck, frozen, and maybe even downright frustrated, you're in the right place. If you're anything like me, you've done everything society told you to do that would promise you success. You've got the job, you've got the husband, you've got the car, you've got the vacations, you've got the 401k. And yet, underneath it all, when you're really honest with yourself, you're deeply disconnected and unfulfilled. Here is where we talk about letting go of who you think you're supposed to be so that you can get busy creating a life that you actually love. Everything healing, revealing, and rising is on the table. And we don't hold anything back around here. So buckle up, babe, because you are entering a vortex of your most juicy transformation. One where we dethrone perfectionism so you can access more energy, creativity, and vitality. I am so happy and grateful that you are here. Hey, Mama, welcome back to the Unperfected Pod. I'm Brooke Jean, your host, and I am so happy and grateful you're here. This week on the show, I had a beautiful and super, super intelligent working mom, Kylie Ota, on the show. And before we get into that conversation, I wanted to share a couple updates with you. Number one, I have officially soft launched Social Goats to my community. This is the next up and coming YouTube, the next personal development platform / social media platform that is designed to raise the consciousness of the planet. It is membership based only, and there is an opportunity to get in at the ground level to be an affiliate for this extraordinary platform, or to be a content creator and to get your mission in front of a lot of new eyeballs. If you guys want to learn more, I'm hosting information calls Sunday nights on Zoom. Make sure you private message me to request that. And I also have my affiliate link if you're ready to join Social Goats now in every single show note. It's free until we turn the lights on, and you do not want to miss out on this extraordinary opportunity. Okay, so for this week's conversation with the Queen, Kylie Ota, let me first read the bio to you. Kylie Ota is an NLP-certified business strategist who specializes in burnout recovery for high-achieving female entrepreneurs. Kylie is a former Army behavioral science specialist who spent 19 years in oil and gas, managing multi-million-dollar projects and developing up-and-coming leaders. After healing from medically diagnosed adrenal burnout, she decided to make a drastic change and leave her lucrative career to preserve the health she fought so hard to recover. Kylie has adapted her work as a health coach and marketing operations strategist to create the Burnout Archetype Quiz that helps entrepreneurs discover their business personality type and create a life and business that works for them. You guys, there were so many cool and interesting things that we talked about. We talked about using different assessments to figure out your leadership type and the way that you work. We talked about figuring out what things like perfectionism is costing your business, what things like control as the CEO is actually costing your business. This genius has been able to quantify some of these leadership habits that I think, number one, are not in alignment with our feminine gifts, and number two, are costing us more than we realize. So you do not want to miss this conversation. It's so good. I hope you enjoy. Well, girl, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. Just we're doing it unperfected today.
Always, always. It is our job and our duty to show that we can have big missions, we can have a big vision, we can make a meaningful impact doing all sorts of weird things along the way.
Yes, right. And so that's where like I was actually journaling this morning. Like I've always felt weird. I've
Mm,
always felt outside looking in. One, I grew up in a divorced family. So my parents split when I was 2. So I was the only child from my birth parents. And then they had their own, relationship. So I have half brothers here and
Okay.
half, half C's over here.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all full. We've never said, oh, this is my half. This is my half. It's always my brother, my sister, etc. But it was like finding that piece of my identity where like I belong no matter what, and like coming home to that. And honestly, it's only been like this last year where a lot of that identity has been really been baked in, because that's where we met, right? We met in the mastermind, the membership, and it's that kind of training, like that level of integration that I had to like have like so many come to Jesus moments, and it's almost like on the daily. Because in that membership, right, we're getting hit with content, like fresh content daily, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like each new concept, like, wow, I get to integrate at an even higher level. I get to confirm my identity at an even higher level. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa. And today, the message that I got was like, okay, I get to strip away all of those projections and like look at where it's coming from and which ones like have I been wearing. Like it's like a burden that I was wearing, you know? And like I don't need to wear that anymore because this jacket belongs to you, right? This
Mm-hmm.
label, this jacket belongs to you because this is how you want to see me. And this belongs to you. So, I get to give these false or perceived identities back to the owner who have projected them upon me. And I'm like, it's so freeing, and I love the whole concept of unperfected because a whole lot of my life I was asked to be, or implied. So I wasn't not asked. It was implied that
Totally.
thou shalt be perfect
Mm.
or thou shalt not receive love.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
So hold on, because you jumped right into projection, which I do want to go deeper on with you because that's so interesting. Before that, though, you said that you were writing in your journal that you always felt weird or that you were weird. And what I've come to discover is that the things that make us weird are actually our like God given gifts and our
Yes.
superpowers. And so, can you say more about your weirdness and like how you leverage that shit unapologetically in this identity that you're stepping into and revealing and becoming every single day?
Right. So what's popping up for me right now is I've been sitting on this concept of the disc, right? I teach on leadership and I've learned about the disc in corporate. And because of like the healer in me, I was like, oh, okay, so there's the disc. You can do a whole SWOT analysis about your disc personality type. And I was like, am I weird? Because I also have a gift of perception, of looking deep into someone. And it would be weird, using the W word again, weird. Like I would have a conversation or be sitting in front of someone, I would get these downloads about them, about their imperfections, and it was like I was seeing behind the veil, like this cloak that people wear, to the public for public perception. It's like, but I was perceiving things that were happening behind the veil.
Mm,
And so when I was looking at the disc and I was meeting with my clients, I was like, oh, I was seeing their blind spots show up. And I was like, oh, is this weird? Like my brain kept making these correlations to their blind spots and to their dispersonality type. I was like, oh, and my brain is very good at recognizing patterns. So that's also something weird that I've done a lot of my life. And I would make these connections. And when I was younger, I would verbalize them. Like I would just get that weird look, like,
what is she talking about? How does
what
she
is she
see
talking?
straight to my soul?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that would be, oh, no, no, you didn't see what you saw,
Mm,
or you didn't feel what you felt. Like,
mm.
however you interpret that was not the interpretation that you should have received because, no, look at the veil. Don't look at
Look at my
behind the veil.
facade. Look at my
Look,
protector. Look at my
yes,
perfectionism. Look at what I
yes,
want you to see.
yes. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, And it was really like this whole year, like, was a recalibration of my intuition because I'm like, because there was that gaslighting, there was that
Mhm.
like, you're not seeing, right? Like John Cena, you can't see me. And I was like, but I
Totally.
can, but I
Yeah.
can. And
Mm.
it was also this understanding that is a gift. My
Mhm.
weirdness is a superpower and it is a gift. And instead of using it as a weapon, I could use it as a tool in my
Mm.
coaching business. And like
Mm.
I've not wanted to like I never wanted to be a coach. I think a lot of people who are in the healing arts and in the coaching industry, there's like two paths that you can go on, right? It's like coaching for money, or like there's that line where like, are you a coach or are you a consultant? Because there's a lot of strategy and things involved with coaching. But for me,
Mhm.
how I interpreted the difference between a coach and consultant, the consultant does a lot of like in front of the veil. Like, this is what I see. Here's, I can help you with the strategy. But the coaching is where you dive deeper into that inner work. Like, you get
Mhm.
to the inner workings of a person, because when you can restructure someone's thought patterns, their feeling patterns on that intricate level, that's where the shift begins to happen. And I think that's the biggest misconception, I'm going to say, in the coaching industry, is some people are actually consultants, but they use the title of coach because it's they're they're looking at the external, not focusing on the internal. So when, going back to the disc method and like applying that external methodology and, looking at the internal structure and the recomposition, and it's not saying that people are wrong per se, but if people are coming for coaching, they know that there is something that they want to shift into something greater, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to be investing in coaching if they just like, you can go to therapy for that, right? And you are a therapist, right?
Mm.
There's certain things where like, this is what was explained to me as well when I shifted into coaching. Like, and you can, clarify, is therapy works more on the past and coaching works more on the future self. But I mean, there's a whole lot of, and I was like, oh, so that for me, because when I was in the military, I did a lot of mental health work. And we're talking military as well. So there's not a lot of touchy feely there. Like a lot of like medication used and
Like PTSD, like what kind of stuff did you work with mental health in the
yeah,
military?
PTSD. And actually, one of my main assignments was in the boot camps. And so we got a lot of new recruits coming in, not being able to handle the stress load. Because,
Mm.
right, going from civilian into the military world it's stressful. And this was also in the late 90s when they were implementing the stress card. Because boot camp is boot camp, right? If you've seen an officer and a gentleman, right, you know that boot camp is structured to be mentally tough because you want the soldiers on the front line to have that mental toughness, to be able to handle the, you know, what they see in wartime.
Mhm.
That's what boot camp's supposed to be preparing you for. But
Yeah.
then we were new jobs, like when we went from the front lines and then having more behind the scenes jobs, like more technical jobs and,
Mhm.
more computery type of jobs, right? A lot of these people weren't going to be on the front line. So I think they had restructured the way that they set up their training. So there were these stress cards that we would hand out to new recruits. And it's like, I'm feeling stressed. And then it was this dynamic where the drill sergeants didn't know how to really deal with that because they were on an old paradigm. It's like, okay, I'm here to make these soldiers tough, right? And if you allow them to have the stress card, then like people were calling stress and they would come to our office and be like, I'm stressed. And then I'm also old school as well. Like I grew up in school of hard knocks.
Mhm.
And so my parents were, tough on me. It's like, you got something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. Like that's the generation that I grew up in as a
Yep.
Gen Xer,
Yep.
right? And so these women coming in, or the recruits coming in, there there was that line that we had to draw between like, is this actually a stress response, or is it a cop out?
How are they not all in a stress response? It sounds borderline torturous what they go through. And we are human, we're not machines.
It is. It is. And so that's where the diagnoses had to be looked at strategically. Are they actually in a stress response, or
Yeah.
are they using this like stress response as a cover to just get out? And it's fine. Either way, it's like
Yeah.
if you're not cut out for this,
You should go. Yeah.
yeah.
So wait, you did that job? Are you trained as a mental health professional?
So the skills don't translate to the outside world, to the civilian world.
Oh,
So
oh,
yeah, so
okay.
that's why I didn't end up
Oh,
pursuing it. When I
okay.
got out, I was like, I need to find a job. That's how I got into oil and gas, and I was there for almost 20 years because it was
Wow.
a job and they
Yeah.
were hiring, and I was a single mom. I know you know that story too, right? Yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. We just talked about it on your podcast. We both
yeah.
started out as single moms in the corporate and then started stepping into, the realness of who we are and bringing those gifts to the world.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me go back to your weirdness was your intuitive ability to read patterns and to read what's not, like to know, like to see what's not being said.
Right.
And you've
Right.
started to harness that and bring that to business and leadership utilizing the DISC assessment.
Yes. And I say
Yes.
DISC because that's the primary tool that I use, but there are other four-pronged assessment tools like
Mhm.
the four temperaments, communication styles, but they all go back to this four-pronged personality thing. So I was able to, learn these different things from all these different modalities, and I put them all together into my own quiz, and I love it.
Mm. So, how did you go from corporate in oil and gas to even giving a shit about the disc or any of the personal and professional development tools? Were you
Right.
like on that? Were you experiencing them as a participant and then you piqued an interest, or like how did you come into the personal and professional development realm at all?
So by, divine guidance or however you want to look at it, I
Mm.
was in the training department when all of these leadership development courses were coming down the path. There was a
Okay.
lot of change that was happening in the overall organization. And we had a leadership trainer that would come out to our facility and just do the leadership stuff. Like every 6 months, she would come and do a new program with us. And I would help her facilitate these. I was like, "Oh, this is genius." Like we got to talk and we got to chat. And she has developed like a whole training program for all of the people coming up through the ranks going into leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
she created this whole like leadership training ecosystem. And I was able to learn that from
Mm.
her. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I thought I had left all of that behind when I actually got the medical diagnosis of my adrenal burnout. And I was like, oh, okay. And the doctor said, well, if you want to maintain your healing, you have to consider a different source of income or just an alternate lifestyle. Because he said, you
Mm.
cannot be working in oil and gas on these 12-hour shifts because I was doing 6 shifts a week. So that's
Wow.
70 plus hours a week. I was in middle management at the time. So that we were like so understaffed in middle management. And so I was like, huh. And my husband also works there. He still works there. And so we had a conversation and we were actually in a corporate buyout at that time as well. So, like, so many things were
Mm-hmm.
happening
Mm-hmm.
and an opportunity to leave the company and go into full time entrepreneurship as an entrepreneur in someone else's coaching company opened up.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I was able to slide out that way. But I was also building my coaching business like on the side.
Right.
And I realized a lot of the stuff that I had learned about the disc, about, personality styles, even like Ken Blanchard's situational leadership, I was applying that to all of my contract work as an entrepreneur because I was leading teams again. That's the thing, right? As a natural born leader, you end up just
Leading all the teams,
leading all the teams.
personally and professionally.
Right. Even when I tried not to, I'm like, oh yeah, like
I can't. I
let me
can't.
just let me just do
I can't watch everyone look around at each other and no one takes initiative, that awkward silence, I can't take it. I'm like, all right, step aside. I got an idea of what needs to happen here.
Right. Yeah, the awkward silence can only last for so long. And I'm like,
Okay, excuse me. Let me
okay,
take
if
over.
nobody else has any suggestions, I
Yeah.
have one.
Yeah.
And they're like, ah. And the next thing you know, you get handed a scepter and you're being asked to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized a lot of these tools could also apply to, you know, entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and especially if you haven't been in corporate, most of the time you have not been exposed to DISC, you have not been exposed to these corporate strategies. And I'm like, man, this is so eye-opening because I was going into teams and, creating operational systems for them because I was like more like a COO type of role in these
Mm-hmm.
companies.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, huh. And I just became another middle manager because I was managing the relationships between the people who are doing the tech work, the copywriters and all of that, and the owner of the business. And I was facilitating all of that. And what I realized was like communication styles, according to DISC, were super important. And even like how work was distributed, like, oh, okay, that's your personality style. Okay, so let's set up a work schedule that works for you. I'm like, and I was finding ways to apply it to so many different situations. And then once I started doing that, like I started to see the pattern. And so I didn't like, I was developing this concept, like how you say, right? We're building the rocket ship as it's
As we're
flying.
taking off. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was all internal for me. It was just tools for me to use to help make my job easier. And then I realized, I was like, holy smokes, like this could actually be taught and implemented like across the board. Like if we could implement this across the board, that would be amazing. Because the other piece of that, so you have the disc, then you have the blind spots. But I also realized that the blind spots that these leaders were having were causing money leaks.
Mm.
Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
like whether it's like bogus conversations that we're having on Slack, like, why are we going back and forth? And it would remind me of my corporate days when you have all of these BS meetings, right? Like, and you're like, okay, there are five of us here in this boardroom. And I would look around the room like, okay, his salary is this, that
Oh
person's
yeah,
salary.
that drives
Like,
me insane.
like
Just so we
this
cannot make a
is
decision. Just so we cannot make a decision and kick the ball to next week, so we can
right,
again not make a decision, so
right.
we can kick the ball. Meanwhile, you're spending $10,000 in payroll every single meeting
Yes,
to not make
yes,
a decision. It drives me
right.
insane. It drives me
Yes.
insane.
And when we were having these bogus meetings as entrepreneurs, I was like, wait. And like you kind of let it slide because it's a corporation. They got big money, they got income coming in. But when I was working, directly with these coaches in these coaching businesses, sure, they were making six figures, seven figures, but that was
Mhm.
still like I say human to human income generation. So it's like, how can we get a handle on our spending? And it wasn't my job. Like, I'm not the CFO, I'm COO. But because I don't know, this is another weirdness of mine. Like, inefficiencies make my skin crawl. Just like how that visceral reaction that you had, I'm like, oh, like,
Mhm.
why are we doing it the hard way? And that's also how I incorporated automations like Zapier, like native integrations. I'm like, this could be handled by a bot. This doesn't have to be handled by a human. And all of that, those systems are also created because I'm talking to real humans who are having like stress responses like, ugh, why do I have to do this? Because they're all talking to me behind the scenes, right? Like, oh, why do I have to do it this way? Well, because, she wants it done this way because she wants this done this way. And I'm like, okay, wait. And so my brain would just go in and figure out how not to take the human out of it, to take the human out of it and not to cut back on this person's hours. But this person is telling me they do not want to physically do this aspect of the job anymore. So
Mm.
how can I free her up give her back her time, or so that she can do it on something else that she loves and she enjoys. And even looking at the dynamics of a team, it's like, okay, I know this technically is part of your role and your responsibility, but if you hate it, you're not going to be producing your best work.
Mm-mm.
So, and if Jane loves it, let's give it to Jane. She's
Go
going to
off,
eat it up.
Jane. Go off,
Right.
Jane.
And it eases both of them, because even for Jane, and she sees, let's just say Jill, right? She sees Jill struggling. She's like, oh God, I wish I could help her, but it's not my job, right? There's that awkwardness that happens as well. But if you free up your team to say, hey, let's look at our strengths, let's look at our, I don't want to call them weaknesses, but look at our blind spots and say, okay, what do you want to put down? What do you want to pick up? It's like card game, right? Just, like poker, what cards do you want to dump? What cards do you
Mhm.
want to pick up? And
Yeah.
you have a winning hand at that point. And everyone feels like a winner. And that just increases your productivity, and it cuts back on your spending, and it increases your profitability. So you're generating revenue with this renewed sense of energy, renewed sense of purpose. And it's just like, whoosh. And I would see like so many of my clients, their businesses would just take off. Once we cleared through all of that muck, they didn't even realize that was happening until they brought someone like me into their team.
Mm-hmm.
Because they said, I
Yeah.
need systems because I'm drowning. I'm like, okay, but it's more than just systems. It's about understanding the people as
Mm-hmm.
well. And where can we replace something with an automation or bot, whatever? And where can we just infuse more of that personal power and accountability so that they love what they're doing and they produce a better result for you and your company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is so good. I've always intuitively felt like any operational inefficiency comes back to team and people, and
Yes.
us not being willing as leaders to have hard conversations, to move things around, to move people around, to take action, to do the thing. And it's
Yes.
costing us so much money and also just engagement of the team because like you said, if you're not in your zone of genius, and you're not entering flow state and you're not productive, then you're not proud of the work that you're doing. And
Exactly.
so you want to build a team where people feel like, look, I'm doing good work and I'm contributing to something here. And this
Yes.
is one of the reasons why I fell in love with your magic is because you bring all of this like leadership knowledge and professional development and you use all the tools, but then you could quantify for me human behavior phenomena that has been driving me insane since the beginning of time. And my new one, of course, that I'm on is perfectionism. So when
Right.
now, like, I want to know, like, how much is it costing business for our team to be showing up inauthentic, trying to please, trying to be perfect? Because what I know is we're sitting and spinning and we're double working and we're editing and we have so many people looking at things and meetings on top of meetings and then people being performative versus authentic. And it's just like one big, like, number one, cost, and number two,
Yes.
cock block to creativity is what it,
Yeah. 100%.
right?
And yeah, and I love automations, I love bots. And actually, I was sitting down with ChatGPT. Like, I love working with them because when I have these ideas and I can't spit them out, because for me, another part of my weirdness is I feel things in my body. I don't know always how to articulate them, but I feel things in my body. And I'm like, no, like there's, like you said, like, how do I quantify the cost? So I sat down and I was like, I just plain asked him, how do I quantify the cost? And it was just like, it was like this verbal vomit coming out, like, there's this inefficient, like, they're losing money here, they're losing money there. Like, how do I get this? And
Mm.
he was like, oh, so you want to calculate the man hours spent on, I was like, yes.
So
It's like,
wait,
yes.
ChatGPT was your collaborator on this?
Yes, I collab with him all the time because I get stuck in my head. Because
Yeah, where
things, like I
you
said,
get constipated. You can't like get it out, but you can
yeah,
feel it. You can see it, but you can't articulate it. I
yes,
get that. I get that. And
yeah,
ChatGPT just like says it for you and then gives you the steps. Oh, oh my gosh.
yeah.
Okay,
But shh,
so
it's a secret.
okay, yeah, only my listeners get to know.
Yeah,
I listen, girl, I just like am slow to get on the chat GPT AI train because I think I'm just honestly a little overwhelmed by it. It's not my zone of genius, and I'm with people all day, all the time. So, like, sitting down and learning a new thing feels hard for me, and I'm open to learning it. I know it's where we're going. I'm super down for that. I'm just going to be like slow with it. But when I hear things like this, it
Yeah.
gives you hope for what chat gpt can be for you. And
Yeah.
I do think we have a responsibility as heart-led leaders to shape AI for the good, because there's plenty of fuckers who are going to want to shape it for the bad. And so we almost have a responsibility to show up and to
Yes.
shape it for the good of humanity. And that inspires me, along with stories of like what you're teaching me and showing me is possible, to get in the game, because it's here whether we want it or not, guys. Like, it is
Right.
here. And it is so much further along than you and I have privy information to. So we got to get with the program. But I love that. I love that ChatGPT helped you figure it out, because to me, it's just straight brilliant. Because now I can go to a CEO and I can say, okay, you're a D on the disc. Your COO is an I, and your da da da, and that's costing you money here. And here's what we can do. And a lot of times, like when I go in as a coach or a consultant, I can feel what's wrong as it relates to these things.
Yes.
But it's like nobody wants to hear that. But then when you bring the data,
There you go.
all the CEOs are down to hear that.
Right. And you know what? I was actually doing that in my corporate job without knowing it either. And that's why when I was having this heart to heart with ChatGPT, I was like, I need to quantify hard numbers. Because I knew, like, in corporate, I mean, you've been in corporate, anytime you want, to move the needle, you have to give them hard numbers. Because they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say, like, oh, I'm seeing this out here in the field. They're not
Mm-mm.
going to see it. But if you
Mm-mm.
quantify, like, give them a number for lack of morale, like lack of morale. There's that joke on the internet, like, oh, we're having pizza night to solve the lack of morale problem.
No.
But it's like if you could quantify the lack of productivity in a number of man hours that are going towards, people complaining on the job, or people like quiet quitting on the job, because you're paying for that.
Yes.
You're paying for
Yes.
that.
Yes. And I want to show like leaders the cost of like not being authentic, or not using their voice, or not really creating an inclusive environment where people's ideas are valued, and how to streamline communication versus just toss things around until the cows come home. I just
Right.
feel like there's such an opportunity to like, or let me back up. I feel like now more than ever, in order to move us forward as a species, we need heart led women in leadership who are taking their masks off, throwing their conditioning to the ground, and leading with their intuition and their hearts. And when we start to do that, we're going to come up with really good ideas. And we're
Yes.
going to hear each other, and we're going to lead with compassion and empathy and creativity and all the things that we're just naturally gifted at, but have never been celebrated for. And
Right.
so these kinds of things really excite me, because this is a way for us to balance the masculine and the feminine to move things forward, because everything at the end of the day is a people problem or a people solution.
Right. And I love that you said masculine and feminine, because sometimes, right, if you look at the tool, like the people group that I built it for was for the quantification of feminine energetics into a masculine form, that so that they could see it.
Mhm.
But it's also good in the reverse, right? Because a lot of times if we're too much in the feminine energetics, we're like, oh, but I just need to like get in the zone, or I need to be in
Feel.
flow, and I need to feel like, if you give me the amount of hours that you're waiting for the
Yeah,
flow
yeah,
to
yeah.
fall,
Yeah.
you can quantify that. And, like habit stacking, there's so many ways to improve productivity, but it's like, okay, like just shifting people's schedules around, like understanding, like even personality types, right? Understanding how your personality works. Like the D, you like to work out first thing in the morning. You like to hit it and quit it and like get on with your day. But like the I, they're probably more touchy feely. They need more like people connections. And those are the people, like if you're in an office, they're the social butterfly that's going around to every person like, hey, how are you? And they're waiting for that, that juice to come as they go. And in the online space, it's like you're checking in all your Facebook groups, like you're waiting for the flow to fall because you need that human interaction. But it's like, but how can we use that need of yours, not use, but like leverage that need of yours for human connection, but also make it worthwhile for you, like habit stack it in such a way that you're not just doing it one way. Like we can habit
Just
stack it so that,
socializing all day long, getting nothing done.
yes, yes. And like stack things, like go into the groups and like once you get enough juice, create your post, create your podcast, like do the work that needs to be done because now you're inspired and you can take inspired action instead of like going in all the places and then like, oh, use that energy, like leverage that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we do like a case study? Because I'm a D. My listeners are probably a lot of Ds.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through some things about our leadership that are, okay, how do I say this? Like, where is it costing the shadow side, costing us money? But then where is it also helping us?
Right. So
You
for
see
the
what I'm
D
saying? Like
specific,
both sides of the
yeah.
coin. Mhm.
Yeah. We can do shadows first since we're talking about cost quantification. So I would say the number one thing that the D struggles with is control, right?
Dun, dun,
It's
dun. No, not me. What do you mean? I just try to control everybody's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, actions, reactions, triggers, and what's happening in the world. No biggie. No
no,
control problem here.
no, no. But then, well, so for just for those people who maybe have reacted in that way, right? But that's also your strength, right? The
Mm.
ability to come in and like take command of a situation. Like that's
Influence.
what you get
Yeah,
paid big bucks to do,
true
right?
that. True
That's why
that.
people hire you because you command the room, you take action. That's what people want to see. But like on the
Yes.
flip side, it's going to be like, how can I back away from that control without losing my edge? Because that's what I see a lot with the D people. They're like, but if I tap more into the lay back, like I can't quit. Like if I don't keep charging ahead, then I'm going to lose my edge. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we look at it from the other perspective, like how many hours are you wasting? I use that word on purpose. How many hours are you wasting trying to control everything instead of letting people naturally flow in their gifts? It's like you're stifling certain people on your team, like using the D and the I, for example, right? The I, who is the social butterfly, who is like, you see that as an inefficiency, but it's
Mm-hmm.
actually how they get their work done because they need to take inspired action. So inspired action requires inspiration, and that's where they get their inspiration from. So you will see an ebb and a flow in an I, but if you kind of let them do their thing, rein them in when they're too flighty, like say, hey Joan, like maybe you set deadlines for them, but you allow them that space
Mm.
to like, okay, this is a hard date. And if you need to break it up for them because you want to see progress, then you create mini or micro tasks on there.
Milestones.
Yeah, milestones. Like, oh, because I know I'm a DI. So like that I in me is like, how long do I have to do it? Like, okay, yeah. Well, and it's also because sometimes we're waiting for that inspiration,
Yeah.
right? We can't always have that
Mm-mm.
inspiration on command. So it's like,
No,
okay,
not the best of it anyway.
right. And if you're going to force me to produce a result, it's not going to be at my peak. So that's where also that perfectionism comes in. It's like, this is not my best idea. And I think if you have that conversation, it's like, well, I need that time in order to create something epic, right? So cost quantification, like going back to that, if the amount of time that you spend fighting with that energy of that I person, right? That's cost quantified. You
Mm.
can go back and forth. How many emails did you send? How much time did it take you to write that? Because, right, especially as the D, you're like, I'm in my feelings. This is what I want to say, but I need to dumb it down so I don't offend this person because they're going to see me as the B word. And like, we know, right? It's like it's gonna cut down on morale and they're gonna shrink. And you can see all of these dynamics playing. So like how much actual time did it take you to think of, like, go from I can't stand it when she does this, so therefore I'm going to send a communication, but then all that time going back and forth, I'm like wondering, should I not? Should I not? And then like, okay, I'm going to send a communication. This is what I actually want to say. And then you go talk to like other people around you to justify that it's okay to send them a, you know, it's okay to send this note.
I feel seen. I feel seen right now. I feel called out and seen right now. Oh my God.
And then you're like, okay, yes, I am justified. I'm going to send this communication. Then, then you sit for how many hours
Oh,
or like thinking
oh.
like, what's the best way to say this so I don't offend them
Yeah.
because I know that their feeling gets hurt because, and then delete, 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 delete. Oh,
Mhm, mhm.
and then you finally send it. Then you're like, you're bracing for impact. You're like, okay, when are they going to respond back to me? Oh no, I have to make room in my schedule for when they are going to do their rebuttal. And then
Mhm.
all of that energy too. So
Yeah.
it's not, and so here's how you shore up that gap, right? You get like one communication, understanding how to communicate to that I personality is going to shore up all those hours, you know, and having that open communication up front, like have a company culture conversation. Like if you want to shift your company culture, say like this is where we want to go. And that's how we did it at my corporate job. And it, you know, there are people who are into it, people who are not into it. But the people who were into it opened up so many doors for communication. Like, oh, you're this person, I'm a that person. Oh, and this is how you need to communicate with me because da da da. And you set boundaries, you set expectations, and understanding that this person is a D and this person is an I, and their strengths and their blind spots. It's like, oh, and having that compassion, that's how you actually shore up those gaps, is understanding people's personality styles, how they like to be communicated to, like what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And then you don't have all of that energy
Yeah.
and those racing thoughts and all of that. Because even it's not even just in the moment, like as you're waiting to like confront this person, sleepless nights, and that's also wasted energy, you know, when, and I'll tell you, I use ChatGPT for those conversations as well. Because,
Really?
yeah, I created an alpha communication bot inside.
No, you did not. No, you
I
did
did.
not.
I did. And I just talk to it and say, hey, I'm having, there's this issue, and how do I have an alpha communication with this person regarding this issue? And it goes, "Prrr," and I can just take it, and then I can,
Make it your own.
yeah. Or if you want to just use the D versus I, say, I'm a D, and this is what's happening. She's an I. Because I'll tell you, like ChatGPT, because it's getting so many outputs from so many different people on the planet. I mean, it understands human designs. Obviously, it understands DISC. It understands gene keys. Like it has all these inputs from everybody around the world. And so I'm a D, she's an I. Here's the situation. What will be the best way to communicate with that person? So that's how I would shore up that energy
Mhm.
time leak, is to say, here's how I want to say it. And then you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. And then you
That's
can take it from there, make
mhm.
it your own, but you feel confident, like, wow. Because even like the solutions that come back from it is like, huh. And if you don't like it, I talk to it like a real person. I'm like, you're an idiot. Why would I say that to her? Like, no, 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 no. You're not hearing me. This is how da 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 da. Like you can explain more about her personality and like how she has received information in the past from you and how you want to shift the narrative, energy, blah blah blah, whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. Like the more information you feed it, obviously the better it's going to work for you. But that's
Yeah.
how I get it to sound like me.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
so good. And for the listener, alpha communication is like an outline that we've received from a shared mentor and coach that we both have that just really is a home run for having difficult conversations in a non aggressive way, a non confrontational way, whatever. So that's what alpha communication is. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
it's brilliant.
So you can quantify my natural ability to be controlling of my team and what that's costing my business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's so freaking, that is just next level, girl. That is like next, because we're all doing these things, right? Like, I love my women CEOs that I work with. We are drivers and we are innovators and we are strong women in leadership. And we're also not, we know that we want things to be perfect and that we're controlling and that there's some anxiety there. The intentions are good, but some of these behaviors do cost us money. And I think when we look at the hard data, we're like, okay, damn, like I always knew that I wanted to work on that thing in myself. But now that I see the data, it just motivates me even more to like
Right.
look at it closer and to massage and do all the things that I can do to be better.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so good. All right, girl. So, and I love, as we're wrapping up, I love that on your Instagram, you call yourself a leadership pattern decoder. And then underneath it, you say, discover hidden costs in leadership before it hits the books. And that is so good. I don't know if it's the 5-1 in me, but I'm like, yeah, baby, you spoke directly to my soul with that one. I was like, yes, dude, discover the hidden cost in leadership because there are. Your
Yes.
operational issue is a people issue.
Yes.
Don't
100%.
just keep throwing money at it. It's not always about systems, it's about people. And then we can use systems when we have the right person in the right place and the right fit at the right time and all the things. And so,
Oh, I want to drop in though, like you said, throwing money at it. So that's a D. That's a D trait. They will throw money at problems.
oh yeah. And then we get so effing triggered when it doesn't magically appear. And then if you're a generator like me, you threw all this money at the problem and then you have a new idea anyway. And you don't even want to do the
Right.
old idea. It's like it's that costs us money, right?
Right. Yeah. So on my cost calculator, I have four resources that I quantify, like categories. So one is time, one is ideas. So that's the one, right? When you have ideas, I can quantify the cost of not executing on your ideas as well, like in that
Oh,
calculator.
oh
And
my
then the
God.
money, like money is obvious, right? But then energy too. Like
Oh.
how much money are you spending on wasted energy? Like
Hmm.
those that we just talked about, right? Like
The spinning, the
the
doubting,
spending.
the editing, the meetings on top of meetings to not take action, the passing the buck of accountability. Nobody wants to like say, this is who is doing this by this day. We just keep talking.
Right. Because I don't want to offend you.
Oh,
Because I want everything to be lovey and I don't, yeah, I want us to be friends.
we get to be clear and kind. The best
Yes.
bosses are clear and kind. It's not about being everybody's best friend. It's
No,
about being clear and kind and standing for your team's potential, not their limitations. And
exactly.
understanding you have a people problem. And if you have a people problem, you're the first person to look at. I'm the first person in my business to look at. You're the first person
Yes.
in your business to look at. And we get to do that with love and self compassion and grace and all these amazing tools that are available to us, like the disc and the human design. And now your quantifiable freaking spreadsheet that I cannot wait to collaborate with you on for my keynote because there's just something like I've just always felt like inauthenticity is really holding us back. I
Yeah.
feel it in my bones, but I don't know how to quantify it. I don't know how to get buy-in to that. And once
Yes.
I have you and I can quantify it, well then, honey, I'm going to get the buy-in on how do we create cultures where people really bring their real selves and then
Yeah.
we utilize their real strengths to our advantage in a loving way of like building a well-balanced team.
Yes. The cost of red tape.
Oh, that's a whole nother show.
Whole
All
nother
right, my love.
show.
Whole nother show. Tell everybody where they can connect with you.
My main website is kylieota.com, KYLIEOTA.com. And obviously on Instagram, I'm also at kylie.ota on Instagram. And just send me a DM. Like if something from this conversation hit you, I'm always on the Instagram. Like send me a DM and we can chat about it. And like, oh, like one, I'll help you quantify your personality type. If you've not taken it before, I can help you with that. You can go to kylieota.com/quiz to take that quiz. And then once you know your type and you read all about it, it's like, oh, these are my strengths, these are my blind spots. And if you have any questions, then again, hit me up in the DM and we can just talk about it because I want every person to understand how to quantify the cost of their style. And even if you're not a leader, right? If you're a mother, you're a leader in the home. If
Totally.
you're, say,
If you're listening to this podcast, you're a leader in your life.
true. Yeah, you're a leader somewhere in your life. And it's time for us to really take back the reins and lead ourselves first. Like our mentor says, right? We have to lead ourselves first. Once we
Yep.
know how to lead ourselves, then it gets a lot easier to lead in every other situation. And I wanted to add something else that hit me while you were speaking. It's easy to shift the energies when we do the work on ourselves. Like there's so many stories that I could tell you, like when I've been doing work on myself. So many times the relationship barriers that were previously there are no longer there because I did the inner work just here. The
Mm,
energy shifted, the frequency shifted. And next thing you know, oh, like, oh, you're talking to me again? What?
totally.
And so,
Totally.
right, that's why this work, I feel this work is so important. Understanding yourself, understanding like, okay, these are some of the weaknesses I get to shore up. This is where I get to do the deep inner work, heal, these shadows that I have. And yes, that's why I quantified it so that you see it's an actual loss that you're experiencing because sometimes we will not and see, we will not make that needle move until we see that it's not moving. So that's also why this calculator has been so important and so integral in this experience because we can talk all day. Like you said, you can talk all day without the hard numbers. People won't change. You need to make a case for it.
Totally. Your external reality is just a hologram of your internal
Yes.
landscape. And
Yes.
I also think this is a beautiful story and a beautiful example of embracing your messy, embracing your weird, because your weird is magnificence. Your weird is your special power that the world so desperately needs right now. And so, wherever you feel the most weird, that's where I want you to lean in and be like, what is this thing about me? And I want you to see it with love and get curious and harness it because it is usually your gift, right?
Yes.
So thank you
Yes.
for coming on, Kylie. Thank you for sharing your story and your beautiful gift with me and the world. And to the beautiful listener, take care of yourself and therefore each other. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now. Hey, babe, if you made it to this part of the show, I am so freaking happy for you. That means that you are dead serious about healing, revealing, and rising. And just by showing up for yourself in this way, you are sending a beautiful message to yourself and to the universe that you matter, that you are ready for more. And so don't be surprised if things start to flow your way. I would so appreciate it if you would rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The more reviews that we have, the more that it gets into the heads and hearts of more high achieving, high performing working mamas. Also, we love to get your feedback, so share with us what's landing. You can either DM me on Instagram, I'm at Brooke Jean unPerfected, or you can share a clip that really landed and tag me in it. I want this to be the most extraordinary co-creation where we are in this together, seeing what is possible for women worldwide. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of yourselves and therefore each other.